Are you willing to become a creation? It isn't hard to become a creation. Every day, and since we were children, who we are is shaped by images and ideas that are without us, that are outside of us, that do not come from us, but do come from others. We have accepted in the place of our own the images and ideas of others since we were little. So creation isn't the issue, but the manner in which creation is to take place, and the aim or intention behind that manner of creation. That is the issue. We are accustomed to creation through a type of programming. We are become creations of society, of mother and father, of priest and pastor through programming. We aren't made to think about the images and ideas given to us, but to simply do them, because it is the norm. We are programmed to think and feel in a certain way, and if that thought is disturbed, if that feeling is challenged, then whoever or whatever disturbs or challenges or programmed reality, they must be thought of negatively. Or reality is the invention of a mind that is not ours, and we don't even realize it. And if we do realize it, for some reason, we don't care. What we value, who we value, and how we value what we value is the invention of a mind that is not ours, and we don't even honestly care to realize it. We are creations programmed to believe that an unconscious existence is conscious living, or true thoughts and emotions are suppressed for this programmed personal and religious ideal we either inherited or self-cultivated through inheritance. And we do oddly bless such a life, when we should really be crying, "Woe is me now, for my soul is wearied because of murderers." Jeremiah 4, verse 3, and my bowels, I am pained at my very heart. My heart maketh a noise in me, I cannot hold my peace, because thou hast heard, O my soul, the sound of the trumpet, the alarm of war. Jeremiah 4:19. Do we hear the sound of war? I don't think we do, or else we would be alarmed at the wrong we suffer upon our own self. Having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments contained in ordinances, that sound of war is clearly pronounced, informing us that the strength of sin is the law. That flesh nailed to the tree or cross figuratively illustrates a religious philosophy at war with the living God's will and wisdom. This philosophy is intelligence, righteousness, beauty, and favor through religious laws and deeds. That crucified flesh symbolizes a crucified and annihilated religious mind and practice, highlighting the key source or instrument used in the war for the heart and mind. The religious law programs the conversation's conscience to think and feel according to a mind that is without it, convincing the person that pen and judgment of priest and minister is more precious than the judgment and experience the person can have without outside influence. Through the religious law, the spiritual perception is programmed on how to think and feel on heavenly things, giving the person a low and sensual perception of heavenly things. The person then sees various religious subjects from a sensual or natural point of view, for they are programmed to equate salvation with water, righteousness with deed, order from tradition and doctrine, sin from whatever deviates from water, deed, tradition, and doctrine. This is a very wrong way to carry self, and we today may know that it is wrong by his man who, having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments contained in ordinances, teaches us that the strength of sin is the law. So the question really isn't, will you become a creation? Because when you think about it, we are all generally asleep to who we individually are due to freely accepting personal and devotional creation through human programming. The question then shouldn't be, will you become a creation? Because we all clearly will to become a creation of something or someone. But the question should be, how will you become a creation if you will to become a creation? Through the living God's doctrine, two types of creations are understood. The first type of creation is a programming through religious laws and works. The second type of creation is without handwritten religious laws and ethics being fulfilled through taking personal knowledge of the living God's operation. Because there is no literal divine figure that we can turn to for counsel, because there is no literal building holding the sure presence of this divine figure, we are left to experience creation through mentally and spiritually discerning the words of a book. as our conversation's conscience examines and proves the words of this book, then and only then can we learn that its counsel is above human judgment. Our assignment, if our desire is to chase the change in creation blessed by the living God, is to learn of and do the words of his science, which is why we are told by James, in his first chapter in verse 18, of his own will begat he us with the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. If we are not becoming creations through the living God's new covenant commandment, it is that we are accepting creation through spiritual programming. The creation the Bible's wisdom speaks of is for the inward parts of our conversation's conscience. Our conversation is to don the living God's religious character to experience the kindness of his words upon its heart and mind, and this religious character, as mentioned through the illustration of his man suffering the tree, is without any religious law and commandment. This right religious character is founded upon the principle of exercising faith for knowledge to live by, and if our person is not a creation through this science, we may know that we take creation through the handwritten religious tradition. So we will to become a creation. This is true. But what do we really want? The living God would have our thoughts and feelings exercised by his words so that consciousness meets who we really are. With the lungs of our mind finally moving and taking in clean air, we can learn the reason for our birth to make every day worthwhile. If our intention is to heal and educate self for benevolently giving self, then we do well to do the course the living God states through the illustration of his man suffering the tree. But if we want to remain asleep to who we are, if we want our reality dictated to us, if we want our thoughts and feelings molested, if we want to continue to be a plague not only to our own self but also to others, predictive, personal, and spiritual programming is for us. It just comes down to what we want. If we will, within our heart and mind, die prematurely, let the philosophy of the religious law be that anesthetic, removing us from feeling and experiencing mental, emotional, and spiritual health. But if we will correctly chase inward health, like John says in 2 John 1 in verse 4, we have received a commandment from the Father. And it is our responsibility to learn of and do this commandment for the promised change.